What would you do if praying to God could cost you everything? The door to the lion's den creaks shut. Inside, a man kneels in silence, hands folded, eyes closed, not trembling, not hiding, just praying. Around him, shadows shift and deep growls echo off the cold stone walls. And yet, he doesn't run. He doesn't beg. He prays. His name is Daniel. And this moment in the dark, isn't a tragic end. It's the clearest picture of what unshakable faith looks like. But how did it come to this? Daniel wasn't a rebel. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was a respected leader in one of the most powerful empires in history. Trusted, honored, elevated. And yet, for choosing to kneel before God instead of bowing to fear, he was sentenced to die. This story isn't just about lions and miracles. It's about a man who lived with such quiet conviction that even when the whole world turned against him, he stood firm. Before we step into the lion's den, we need to understand the forces that tried to silence his faith and why they failed. Let's go back to where jealousy began to whisper. Daniel was not a native of Persia. He was in exile, a foreigner who had been taken from Jerusalem decades earlier when Babylon conquered his homeland. But over the years, through empires rising and falling, Daniel had become known for something rare: excellence rooted in integrity. Now, under King Darius, Daniel had risen even higher. The king had appointed 120 satraps to govern the empire, and over them, 3 administrators to oversee it all. Daniel was one of the 3, and soon he was set to be promoted over the entire kingdom. Not because of politics, not because of favoritism, but because an excellent spirit was in him. That excellence is what made others furious. The other officials saw Daniel's rise as a threat. He didn't play their games. He didn't flatter, cheat, or manipulate. He worked diligently, honored the king, and served God with quiet faithfulness. And so, they plotted. At first, they tried to dig up dirt on him. Corruption? None. Laziness? Never. Disloyalty? Not a trace. Frustrated, they finally concluded, "We will never find any charge against this man Daniel unless we find something against him concerning the law of his God." That line says everything. Daniel's greatest strength, his loyalty to God, was now the very thing they would try to weaponize. So they devised a plan, a clever trap wrapped in praise. They approached King Darius, flattering him with words that fed his pride. "O King Darius, live forever. We believe that for 30 days, no one should pray to any god or man except to you, O king. Let it be law, unchangeable according to the laws of the Medes and Persians." Darius, flattered and unaware of the trap, signed the decree. They had him. Now Daniel faced a moment most of us would dread: obey the law or obey God. Keep his prayers quiet or keep his heart honest. Hide his faith or live it fully, regardless of consequence. And Daniel made no announcement. He didn't protest. He didn't post a message of outrage or gather supporters. He simply went home, opened his window toward Jerusalem, and knelt down, just as he had always done, 3 times a day. Not to be seen, but because his soul couldn't live otherwise. Down on the street, his enemies watched from the shadows, smiling. They had him right where they wanted him. But what they didn't realize is that while they were watching Daniel, God was watching too. This wasn't just a political move. This was spiritual warfare, and Daniel had already chosen his side. The trap was sprung. The law was signed, The prayer was offered, and now the lions waited. Daniel didn't hesitate. He heard the decree. He knew the punishment. Still, he walked home, climbed the stairs to his upper room, and opened the windows, facing Jerusalem, his true home. It wasn't defiance. It was devotion. He had always prayed this way, and he would not stop now. 3 times a day, every day, he knelt and gave thanks. Not complaints, not pleas for escape, but thanks to the God who had walked with him through every empire, every exile, every change of power. Down below, his enemies stood waiting, watching. When they saw him kneel, they rushed to the palace. "O king," they said, feigning concern, "did you not sign a law stating that anyone who prays to any god or man other than you within 30 days will be thrown into the lion's den?" The king nodded. The law was clear. It could not be revoked. "Then we must inform you. Daniel, one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day." In that moment, Darius understood. He had been tricked. The weight of his decision crushed him. Daniel wasn't just a servant. He was loyal, faithful, blameless, a man of wisdom and honor. The king spent the entire day searching for a way out. He examined every legal loophole, every path to mercy. But the law of the Medes and Persians was absolute. At sunset, Darius gave the order. Daniel would be thrown into the lion's den. But the walk to that dark pit wasn't one Daniel made alone. King Darius himself walked beside him. Imagine that, a pagan king, deeply disturbed, accompanying a man of God to the place of execution. When they reached the entrance to the den, the roars of the lions echoed from below. The soldiers prepared the stone, and the king turned to Daniel and said something remarkable. "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." That sentence wasn't just words. It was a flicker of hope, spoken by a man who had seen Daniel's faith and couldn't help but believe there might be something real in it. Daniel was lowered into the pit. The stone was rolled across the mouth, and Darius sealed it with his royal ring. His heart heavy, his conscience torn. That night, the palace was silent. No music, no food, no sleep. King, the most powerful man in the empire, was pacing in anguish. But Daniel, the one in the pit, was calm, surrounded by lions, yet kept in perfect peace. Because he wasn't alone. The trap had closed. The punishment was final. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. The first light of dawn crept across the sky. Long before the palace stirred, King Darius was already on his feet, robes hastily thrown on, heart racing. He ran, an old man running. Through the gates, down the stone steps, straight to the lion's den. He didn't wait for guards. He didn't send a messenger. He needed to know for himself. As he neared the sealed entrance, the silence was deafening. No growls, no sounds of struggle. Just stillness. Then, with a trembling voice, he called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God! Has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" There was a pause, and then, incredibly, a voice replied from within, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done wrong before you, O king." Darius collapsed with relief. The stone was rolled away, and Daniel emerged. Alive, untouched, not a scratch on his body. His clothes were intact. His face was calm. It wasn't just survival. It was a supernatural testimony. What happened in that den was not simply protection from wild animals. It was heaven's public declaration. This man belongs to me. And the lions? They weren't tame. They weren't fed. They were held back by the hand of God himself. King Darius was changed. He immediately issued a new decree, not to honor himself, but to honor Daniel's God. "I issue a decree," he wrote, "that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." Justice followed. The men who had plotted to destroy Daniel were brought to the same pit they had prepared for him. This time, there was no angel. The lions, now unleashed, tore through them before they even touched the ground. It was a grim reminder. The schemes of the wicked may flourish for a moment, but they always turn inward. As for Daniel, he prospered. Not because he was clever, not because he fought back, but because he trusted, fully, quietly, consistently, in a God who never sleeps. The lion's den was never meant to be his grave. It was his stage. The place where God turned the faith of one man into a testimony for a whole empire. And perhaps even for us. We all have our lion's dens. Moments where doing what's right feels dangerous, where staying faithful feels costly, where it's easier to stay silent, to blend in, to close the window. But Daniel didn't close his. He didn't protest. He didn't panic. He simply did what he always did. He prayed. His strength wasn't in what he did that day. It was in what he had done every day before. That's the power of quiet faith. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. But when tested, it stands firm. Daniel's story isn't just about rescue. It's about consistency. It's about trusting God even when the outcome is unclear. And that's the invitation for us. You don't need to fight the lions. You just need to keep the window open. So let me ask you, where is God calling you to stay faithful today? If this story spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs courage. And if you'd like more videos that strengthen your faith and bring peace to your walk, hit subscribe and journey with us. Sometimes the most powerful witness is quiet obedience.